The galaxy was old, filled with countless civilizations, but it was also fragile. Among the stars, empires rose and fell, alliances shifted like sand, and peace was always temporary. In the year 7421 of the Galactic Council, the Valari Union, OI, peaceful coalition of small worlds, faced its darkest hour. The enemy came without warning. They were called the Drexian Dominion, a ruthless empire of warlords and conquerors. Their fleets spread across the galaxy like wildfire, leaving behind ash and chains. Planets that resisted were burned, planets that surrendered were enslaved. For centuries, the Drexians had been feared, but never had their hunger been so relentless. The Valari were a gentle people. They built cities of crystal towers, floating gardens, and libraries that held the songs of their ancestors. They believed in diplomacy, in reason, in peace. But when the Drexians arrived, reason meant nothing. The Valari fleets were small, their weapons outdated, their defenses fell within days. On the planet Kashara, the heart of the Valari Union, the invasion was brutal. Drexian warships blackened the skies, blotting out the sun. Cities burned. Families fled to the underground shelters, clutching their children as the sound of bombardment shook the earth. Soldiers fought bravely, but their lines broke under the endless waves of Drexian firepower. The Valari High Council gathered in desperation. Their voices trembled as they argued in the great chamber, the walls shaking from distant explosions. Some wanted to surrender, believing mercy might be found in submission. Others shouted in anger, saying it was better to die free than live as slaves. At last, one voice cut through the chaos, the voice of Elder Talon, the oldest among them. His white crest feathers were stained with dust and blood, but his eyes still burned with resolve. "We have no hope left among our neighbors," he said. "The empires that once called us friends have already abandoned us. They fear the Drexians more than they value honor. If we wait for them, we will perish." "But who can we call upon?" asked another counselor, her voice breaking. "Who is left? Who would come for us?" Elder Talon looked up at the sky through the chamber's broken dome, where fire rained down like stars falling. His voice was low, almost a whisper, yet it carried to every corner of the room. "Then we call to the unknown, to anyone who will hear, even if it is the void itself." And so, the Valari prepared their final act of desperation. Deep beneath, the burning capital, engineers activated the ancient beacon, a device left behind by forgotten explorers of old. It was designed to send signals across impossible distances, beyond the reach of ordinary communication. The beacon's core glowed, and the message began. The counselors spoke together, their words heavy with sorrow and hope. "This is the Valari Union. We are under attack. Our people are dying. If anyone hears us, we beg you, help us before we are gone." The signal was launched into the abyss of space, faster than light, racing past stars and empty voids. It traveled blindly, with no guarantee that anyone would ever hear it. When the transmission ended, silence fell in the chamber. The counselors looked at one another with hollow eyes. Some wept quietly. Some simply stared at the floor. They all knew the truth. No help was coming. Outside, the Drexians tightened their grip. Their fleets descended lower, their soldiers swarming the cities. The cries of the Valari people echoed through the night. The counselors stayed together, in the ruined chamber, waiting for the inevitable. They had done all they could. Their message was cast into the dark like a bottle thrown into a raging sea. But far beyond the Valari's sight, past forgotten borders and dead stars, the signal continued. It carried across the galaxy into places the Valari had never known, until it reached ears that had not been heard in millennia. A people once thought gone, a name that still lingered in whispers of fear and awe. Humanity, the Valari beacon carried, its desperate cry into the endless dark. But in the galaxy, silence followed. Among the great empires and ancient councils, the message was received, analyzed, and ignored. The Irith Collective, wise and old, heard it first. Their leaders sat in towering spires of glass, their minds connected through thought streams. They listened to the Valari's plea, and then they turned away. They had seen the Drexian Dominion before, and they knew the cost of interference. To fight the Dominion was to invite annihilation. "We will not risk our fleets for a doomed people," one Aerith elder declared. "Compassion is weakness when the fire is this great. Let the Valari fall." The Krendar hegemony heard it next. Their generals studied the Valari's coordinates, then laughed. What do they expect? They are dreamers and singers, not warriors. If they wished for survival, they should have built armies instead of gardens. They too erased the signal, choosing silence over action, and so it was across the galaxy. The plea of the Valari Union passed through council after council, world after world, and in each place, fear strangled mercy. None dared challenge the Dominion, but not every listener dismissed it. For in the deepest archives of the oldest races, the signal awakened something buried in memory. Whispers began to spread. The words were spoken carefully, always in hushed tones, for even the mention of the name carried weight. Perhaps humanity will hear it. The galaxy had not spoken of humans openly in centuries. To many, they were nothing but a legend, a race that had risen from a small blue world at the edge of nowhere and grown faster than anyone believed possible. They had once stood against empires that thought themselves eternal. They had fought wars where the odds were impossible, and yet they endured. Their soldiers were known to laugh in the face of defeat. Their explorers crossed boundaries that others feared. Their engineers created weapons that should not have been possible. But then, they vanished. No one knew why. Some believed humanity had destroyed itself in one of its endless wars. Others claimed they had simply grown tired of the galaxy's politics and retreated into the dark, leaving only ruins and rumors behind. Still, there were always those who swore the humans were not gone. They whispered of ghost fleets seen at the edges of dying stars, of colonies hidden in uncharted systems, of voices in the void that answered distress, calls no one else would. Most dismissed these tales as myths, until the Valari beacon was sent. For some reason, the old fears returned. Alien leaders whispered behind closed doors. What if the humans hear this call? Would they still fight as before? Would they save the Valari? Or would they bring fire to us all? The name humanity was spoken with awe, but also with dread. Because if they were real, if they still existed, then the balance of the galaxy would change forever. And then, the unthinkable happened. At the edge of Valari space, beyond the reach of any known empire, strange signals appeared. Fleets patrolling nearby reported detecting ships unlike any seen before. They moved with unnatural speed, cutting across hyperspace lanes with precision no Drexian could match. Their hulls bore no crest, no mark of empire, no banners of conquest. They were silent and cold, like shadows of steel drifting through the void. When news of these ships spread, the elder races grew uneasy. Their worst suspicions were confirmed. The humans had not perished. They had only been waiting. The Valari themselves knew nothing of this. They only saw the fire in their skies and felt the boots of Drexian soldiers on their streets. For them, there was no hope. But far away, a storm was gathering. The humans had heard the cry, and when humanity stirred, the galaxy always trembled. The Valari world of Kashara was burning. The sky glowed red as Drexian warships hung above the planet like predators circling wounded prey. Flames rose from shattered cities. Every street was filled with screams, smoke, and the heavy march of Drexian soldiers. The Valari fought with everything they had left. Small defense crafts launched into the sky only to be torn apart by Drexian fire. On the ground, soldiers armed with outdated rifles stood shoulder to shoulder, determined to protect the last of their families. Yet bravery could not match numbers. The Dominion's fleets stretched across the horizon, a wall of steel and fire. The Drexian commander of the assault, Lord Varnock, stood aboard his flagship with cruel satisfaction. His armored hands rested on the rail as he watched the burning world below. To him, the Valari were weak, soft creatures who loved art more than war. Conquering them was no challenge. It was only a matter of time. "We will have this world by nightfall," Varnock declared, his voice like thunder to the officers around him. "The Valari will kneel or they will burn." But then, the sky changed. At first, it was only a flicker, a ripple in the void above the planet. Then a shadow appeared, sharp, sleek, and unlike anything the Drexians had ever seen. A single ship emerged from hyperspace. It was not massive like the Drexian battleships. It did not need to be. Its design was foreign, its surface cold and silver, its angles sharp as if cut from the night itself. The Valari survivors hiding in the ruins saw it and gasped. They did not recognize the vessel, but for the first time in weeks, hope touched their hearts. The Drexians, however, laughed. "One ship?" Varnock sneered. "Do they send toys against us now?" The fleet turned its weapons toward the newcomer. Hundreds of cannons lit up, preparing to unleash fire that could crack a planet's crust. The small vessel did not move. For a heartbeat, it drifted silently, as if it was not even aware of the danger. Then it struck. A single beam of light cut through the darkness. It moved with impossible speed, tearing through a Drexian cruiser from bow to stern. The warship exploded in a ball of fire before its crew even understood they were dead. The battlefield froze in shock. Then the ship moved again, not like the lumbering giants of the Dominion, but like a predator among prey. It weaved through the fleet, its weapons firing with surgical precision. Each shot was exact, each strike devastating. Drexian destroyers fell one by one, torn apart, in blinding flashes. In less than 5 minutes, what had been a wall of invincible steel was a graveyard of burning wrecks. Panic spread among the Drexian soldiers. Their numbers meant nothing. Their armor meant nothing. Against this single vessel, their mighty fleet was being unmade. On the surface, Valari citizens poured into the streets, staring upward as the night sky lit with explosions. They could not believe what they were seeing. Hope, once dead, began to stir in their hearts. Lord Varnock roared in fury. "Impossible! Who dares challenge us?" He slammed his fist into the console. "Find me the name of that ship. Find me the name of their masters." But his officers had no answer. Their scans revealed only one word in the alien language carved faintly into the hull, a word they did not recognize, yet one that made the elder races shudder when the report reached them. Humanity. The Drexian fleet broke and fled, abandoning the planet they had nearly conquered. For the first time in their bloody campaign, they had been forced to retreat. On the ground, the Valari wept with relief. Their world still burned, their people still suffered, but something greater had awakened. The legends were true. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The fires of Kashara still burned, but for the first time since the invasion began, the Valari looked to the sky and did not see only darkness. The Drexians were gone. Their mighty fleet, once countless and invincible, had fled before a single ship that fought with a fury no one could explain. The Valari people, broken and hopeless only hours before, now stood in the streets staring upward, whispering to one another. Who were they? What ship moves like that? Are they gods or demons? In the council chamber, Elder Talon and the other surviving leaders waited as the strange vessel descended through the smoke-filled sky. The ground trembled as it landed on the ruined plaza outside, its silver hull scarred but whole. A ramp extended and figures emerged. They were not gods. They were not demons. They were human. The Valari had never seen their kind before, yet there was no mistaking the presence they carried. They walked with the weight of warriors who had faced endless battle. Their armor was dark, simple, and functional. Their faces were stern, but not cruel. Their eyes held fire, but also something softer, resolve, not conquest. At their head walked a tall man with weathered skin and gray streaks in his dark hair. His expression was calm, but his gaze swept the plaza with sharp focus, as if measuring everything, weighing every danger. He stopped before the council and spoke in a voice steady and clear. "Who leads here?" Elder Talon stepped forward, his body frail, but his spirit unbroken. His voice trembled as he answered, "I am Talon of the Valari Union. And you are not Drexian. Who are you?" The man's lips curved into the faintest shadow of a smile. "We are human." The word meant nothing to the Valari, but to the galaxy beyond, it was a word wrapped in legend. Talon only frowned softly. "Why have you come? Why risk yourselves for us?" The human commander looked at him for a long moment before answering. "Because we heard your cry." Those words silenced the plaza. The Valari counselors exchanged looks, some with disbelief, some with tears forming in their eyes. The distress, beacon they had sent into the dark, the message they believed no one would answer. Someone had. Talon bowed his head, his voice breaking. "You saved us when no one else would. We are in your debt." But the human only shook his head. "We did not come for debt. We came because no one deserves to burn while the galaxy looks away." Another Valari counselor, younger and filled with grief, stepped forward. "But you must see, our world is only one. The Drexians will return. They will not stop with us. They are destroying everything in their path. Who can stand against such power?" The human commander's eyes hardened. "We can." The words were not spoken with arrogance. They were spoken with certainty, as if they carried the weight of history behind them. He turned slightly, his soldiers standing firm at his side, and continued, "Tell us where they have struck. Tell us what worlds have fallen. If the Drexians think they can burn freely, then we will show them what it means to awaken humanity's wrath." For the Valari, it was a moment of awe. They saw no demand for tribute, no hunger for conquest, no demand for loyalty. The humans sought only the truth of suffering, and when they learned it, they chose to fight. That night in the ruined capital of Kashara, survivors lit lanterns for the dead. Their voices sang the mourning songs of their people, but for the first time, the sound carried not only grief, it carried hope. Above them, the human ship rose back into the sky, its engines glowing softly in the dark. It was not alone anymore. More signals filled the void, more ships gathering, drawn by the beacon and the promise of battle. Across the stars, whispers began to grow louder. The ancient name, once only spoken in fear or myth, now returned in full force. Humanity had revealed itself, and they were preparing for war. News of Kashara's battle spread across the galaxy like wildfire. To the Valari, it was a miracle. To the silent empires watching from afar, it was a warning. But to the Drexian Dominion, it was an insult they could not forgive. Never before had their fleets been forced to retreat by a single ship. Never before had their name been mocked with defeat. The Drexians were conquerors, proud and merciless. For them, fear was power, and to lose fear was to lose everything. In the grand war halls of the Dominion, Lord Varnock stood before his masters. His armor was still scarred from the battle, and his pride burned with shame. "A shadow ship destroyed our fleet," he admitted, his voice like gravel. "It moved like no vessel we have ever faced. Its weapons tore through us as if we were nothing." The high warlord of the Dominion, a towering beast of muscle and steel, rose from his throne. His eyes glowed with fury. "Then you will not return with excuses. You will return with fire. Gather the fleets. Gather them all. Crush the Valari, and whoever dares defend them. Leave no doubt in the galaxy. None stand against the Dominion." And so, the Drexians prepared. Across dozens of systems, ships were summoned. War factories worked day and night, forging weapons of devastation. Thousands of vessels formed into an armada so vast that entire sectors trembled at its passing. The Drexians were not coming to conquer this time. They were coming to erase. Meanwhile, on Kashara, the Valari people lived in both hope and fear. Their cities were still ruined, their wounds still fresh. Yet above their skies, human ships had begun to gather. Not many at first, just a handful, sleek and deadly, each one a ghost of steel. But with each passing day, more arrived, slipping through the void like hunters drawn by blood. Elder Talon watched from the council tower as the human fleet grew. They answer not with words, but with presence, he whispered. Every ship they bring carries the promise of vengeance. The Volari did not understand how humans had survived in silence for so long, nor how they had built such ships, but they saw something in them that no other empire had shown: resolve without hesitation. When the Drexian armada finally entered Volari space, the stars themselves seemed to vanish. Thousands of warships appeared, blotting out the light. Their arrival was like a storm, dark and endless, promising death to all. The Volari trembled. It is too many, some whispered. Not even the humans can face this. But the humans did not tremble. Their commander stood aboard his flagship, calm and steady, watching the enemy fill the void. His words carried through the fleet. Numbers do not win wars. Will does. And today, our will is unbreakable. The battle began. The Drexians surged forward with overwhelming firepower, their cannons blazing, their ships crashing into formation. But the humans met them head-on. Their vessels moved like shadows, weaving through the storm, striking with precision. Where the Drexians were brute force, the humans were strategy and speed. One by one, Drexian warships exploded in brilliant bursts of light. Entire wings of their fleet vanished under the coordinated strikes of humanity's machines of war. On the surface of Kashara, the Volari gathered in the ruins, watching the sky. They saw flashes of fire and streaks of light, the dance of death, playing out above their world. Their hearts pounded with fear, but also with awe. The impossible was happening again. The Dominion, with all its numbers and all its rage, was breaking. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy's greatest terror was not feared. It was hunted. And every surviving Drexian soldier, every officer, every warlord, began to understand a truth that chilled their blood. Humanity had returned, and against them even empires could fall. The battle for Kashara marked the turning point. The Drexian Dominion, once the unstoppable terror of the stars, had been driven back. Their fleets, built on centuries of conquest, had shattered before the precision of human fire. But the victory was not only the Volari's, it was the galaxy's. News spread faster than light. Whispers carried through trade routes, smuggler channels, and hidden networks. On worlds enslaved by the Dominion, chains rattled as hope was reborn. On planets where leaders had stayed silent out of fear, councils sat in unease. And among the elder species, who remembered stories of long ago, ancient dread returned. Humanity had returned. At first, alien leaders tried to deny it. It is impossible, they said. Humans were gone. They destroyed themselves. But denial could not silence the reports. Thousands of Drexian warships destroyed by fewer than 100, human vessels, entire fleets routed, planets liberated, and in every system where the humans appeared, they asked the same question: who else has suffered? They did not ask for gold, or tribute, or slaves. They did not demand loyalty. Instead, they sought out the broken, the oppressed, the forgotten. Wherever the Drexians had struck, humanity followed, bringing fire against the conquerors and freedom to the enslaved. But to those who watched from afar, this was what made them terrifying. Mercy could be trusted. Anger could be predicted. But humanity carried both in equal measure. They could destroy an armada without hesitation, yet kneel beside the wounded to lift them up. They could burn an empire to ash, yet give food to strangers without asking for payment. This duality unsettled the galaxy more than any weapon. In the Aerith Collective, the elders spoke in secret. If they fight for justice now, it is good, one whispered. But what if one day their justice turns to conquest? Asked another. Who could stop them then? In the Krendar hegemony, warlords gritted their teeth. They respected power, but they feared unpredictability. The humans may not want thrones, one general muttered, but their very presence topples them. And in the shadowed halls of other empires, leaders spoke the truth none wanted to admit. To be their ally is salvation, to be their enemy is doom. Meanwhile, in the Valari Union, the survivors of Kashara began to rebuild. They cleared the ash, they sang their mourning songs, and they buried their dead. But for the first time, they rebuilt with hope. Every evening, children gathered near the landing fields to watch the human ships depart and return. They whispered about the warriors of Earth as if they were figures from ancient tales. To the Valari, they were not just soldiers. They were proof that someone in the galaxy still cared. Elder Talon, who had sent the desperate distress signal, now stood on a balcony overlooking the reconstruction of the capital. A human officer stood beside him, silent but steady. "You have changed everything," Talon said softly. "Before you came, we believed the galaxy was cruel and indifferent, that no one would hear us. Now, because of you, our people know we are not alone." The human officer did not look at him, but at the horizon where the sun set over broken towers. "We heard you," he said simply. That was enough. Above them, the stars glimmered, and among them, the Drexian dominion still lingered. Though wounded, it was not yet destroyed. And it would strike again. But now the galaxy was different. Now the Drexians knew fear. Not of the Valari, not of any council, but of the humans who hunted them. The galaxy trembled, not because it had been conquered, but because something greater than conquest had returned. Humanity carried the weight of both mercy and wrath, and the stars would never forget it. The Drexian dominion had gathered what remained of its power. Its fleets, though reduced, still numbered in the thousands. War machines scarred by battle sailed toward Valari space, their commanders burning with vengeance. Every Drexian soldier carried the same thought: humanity would die, or the galaxy would burn. But when they arrived, they found nothing like what they expected. The human fleet waited. Not a single ship was lost to panic or hesitation. Hundreds of vessels hovered above the system, sleek, sharp, and silent as predators. The stars themselves seemed to bend around them, reflecting the metallic glint of their hulls. On the ground, Valari survivors watched from the ruins of their city. They had learned to hope, but even their hearts trembled at the sight of so much human power gathered above. The human commander, standing on the bridge of his flagship, raised a hand. His voice carried through the fleet and the remnants of Drexian communication channels alike. "This is your last chance. Lay down your weapons. Leave these worlds. Surrender to mercy or face our wrath." Silence followed. The Drexians could not believe the audacity. Their leaders laughed, thinking the humans bluffing. They moved to attack. The sky erupted. Human ships moved like living shadows, splitting the enemy fleet into sections before their cannons even fired. Each strike was precise. Every Drexian vessel was targeted, destroyed, or disabled. Explosions painted the darkness in streaks of fire. Entire squadrons disappeared before the Dominion could mount a proper defense. The Drexians realized, too late, that they were not facing mere mortals. They were facing legends reborn. Their mighty fleets crumbled. Commanders shouted orders, but nothing could stop the humans. Every maneuver was anticipated, every weakness exploited. It was as if the entire battle had been calculated in advance, and the Drexians were merely pieces on a board they could not control. On Kashara, survivors fell to their knees. Flames still rose from broken towers, but the sky now belonged to humanity. Children who had never seen a star untouched by smoke now gazed upward, their eyes wide with wonder. The human commander broadcast once more across the Dominion channels. "This war was your choice. You struck first, enslaved worlds, burned cities, and silenced voices. We answered only because someone cried for help. Remember this: the galaxy will not stand by forever. If you raise chains and fire against the innocent, we will come. And next time it will be absolute." Silence fell across the Dominion. Their leaders were captured or destroyed. Fleets fled to distant sectors, forever haunted by the memory of what they had faced. Planets once under their control were liberated. Systems that had trembled in fear now celebrated freedom. The humans did not stay. Their fleet did not occupy conquered worlds. They landed only to aid, to rebuild, and to leave. Where the Valari had suffered, Humanity left hope. Where the Dominion had burned, humanity left a warning. The stars are not safe for tyrants. Elder Talon, standing on the highest terrace of the rebuilt city, watched as the fleet disappeared into the void. His voice was soft, almost a prayer. They came when all hope was lost. They fought not for glory, not for empire, but for justice. The galaxy is alive again because of them. The human commander turned toward the horizon, toward the endless dark. No words were spoken. He knew that humanity's work would never truly end, that somewhere out there cries would still go unanswered, and if the galaxy called again, they would come. As the last human ship vanished among the stars, a new truth settled over every civilization. When humanity answers the call, mercy and wrath move together, and the galaxy trembles. For the Valari, for the freed worlds, and for all who would witness it, a new dawn had arrived, and in the silence of space the legend of humanity lived again.